Hello and welcome to the Natural Hydrogen event, sponsored by HNAT 2025. I want to remind you that HNAT will have its Investor Day 2025 this November 14. And if you're interested in going, we can help you find a discount, so please reach out. As you may know, today I'm Anthony Muhye. I'm presenting this. I'm moderating the discussion between Christophe Hecker of NaturalHy and Morten Stahl of Natural Hydrogen Ventures. So today he won't be wearing his NAT H2 investing hat, but his investor hat instead. So I want to start by asking Christophe, which the question is for both of you, but Christophe, please answer first, and then Morten, and we will continue with that order as we advance. Many here may not know you, and many here will, but it's important for us to reintroduce you. Christophe, what have you been up to in the natural hydrogen space? What have you been doing with NaturalHy? And how do you operate in natural hydrogen investment? And then, Morten, I would like you to answer the same. Natural Hydrogen Ventures, how does it function? And how do you see companies in the space, identify them, and invest in them, supporting them with funding?
No problem. So, assisting junior exploration companies in their fundraising efforts. I notably worked for the French pioneer who is Terensis, who is the first company who obtained a license in France, and we closed its previous fundraising round. It was more than 1 year ago. So this is my first hat. The second hat is that I'm co-creating an investment fund with a French asset manager that will be dedicated not only to natural hydrogen, but natural hydrogen will be a very important part of the investment thesis. And we are currently trying to raise 150 million euro investment fund. And the last hat I have is I'm the spokesperson at Earth2. Earth2 is basically our cluster program in Europe, representing natural hydrogen at the European level as a key energy for the energy transition. And we are bringing together something like 50 members in Europe that are all committed to making natural hydrogen a reality in Europe.
Okay, fantastic. I would love to know a bit more about Earth2 and what they're doing. So maybe we can have a chat somewhere within the call or after. But now I want to ask you, Morten, more about Natural Hydrogen Ventures, because we work together, and one would assume that maybe, oh, I know everything about this, but we work together on that H2 investing, and we don't really explore Natural Hydrogen Ventures. So tell everybody here a bit more about how you see the investment space in natural hydrogen.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And I'm happy to be giving the opportunity, because when I'm out discussing natural hydrogen, like in Australia last week, people tell me, "Oh, I recognize your voice. You're the podcast guy." And I'm happy about that. But I try to tell them that I'm also the investor guy. And I created Natural Hydrogen Ventures 3.5 years ago after stumbling across natural hydrogen while doing my normal investment research. Quickly realizing that the potential of hydrogen that is clean and actually cheap enough to be widely used. And this is, since then, it's just taken off. We made 4 investments so far, 3 in exploration and 1 in company still in stealth mode that works to bring hydrogen from where it's discovered to the customers. But interestingly, what really got me started after reading, as I think I told in one of our previous podcasts, reading in Financial Times about natural hydrogen. One of the first things I did was participating in what might have been the second H-NAT, that back in the days, still online. I was participating in that, and that really gave me a good view to the industry. That's where I met or saw a presentation from my partner in the fund, Philip. And also, as you know, Anthony, I met you last year at HNAT. So there is a reason why it's the biggest conference. And now just really excited to see that the conference is looking into the investment side of things as well.
Yes, that to me was one of the biggest announcements that came out. The Investor Day 2025 was going to be focused entirely on how this space is getting the support from private and public figures organizations. that are going to support natural hydrogen. I think this makes a big advancement, because until now, a lot of the conversations were being scientific, which is not bad. I mean, there are many scientists probably here who I don't want to anger. So let me stay on their side by saying it's very good to have the science, but it's also very good to know that non-sciencey people are also looking at the space as a potential energy opportunity, chemical feedstock opportunity, and so on. So that is very, very useful. So I have another question, which is more about how maybe your thesis, your investment thesis, or the people around you, how they think. What defines a great investment opportunity in natural hydrogen? I think I'm going to continue this order of letting Christophe and then Morten answer, because right now many companies are pre-revenue. We know that flowing hydrogen is not a thing. So we have to invest in the opportunity of future flowing hydrogen. And how to identify the best bets in this space?
So first of all, I think that, of course, the team is very important. You have to be very cautious about who are the founders. I really like working with seasoned people from the oil and gas sector, because of course those guys have all the skills for natural hydrogen exploration. I'm also very cautious about the risk those guys are taking. When you see people that are more than 50 years old, that have already had a great career in the oil and gas sector with very good salaries, and decide to quit in order to create their own startup, this is a very good signal also. So the team, of course, is very important. Then the other very important criteria is do they have an asset, either leases if it's in the US, or a license if it's in, for example, in France or Europe. It's very complicated to raise funds for people that have just an idea. Of course, you have to get an asset, or you have to be very close to have that asset. And of course, other criteria like the geological context. Once you have an asset, what is the geological context? What do we have as data to have evidence that natural hydrogen is there? What about the legal, the political, the social context also? Because acceptability will also be key. And last but not least, once you will extract your natural hydrogen, what will happen above ground? What is the offtake?
Right.
Is it close? Is it far away? So this is also very, very important. And my last point, which is not really about the asset, it's about the story you tell to investors. You need to have a clear fundraising journey. You need to have milestones on each round of fundraising that are very clear, and that give confidence to investors that at each stage you will have de-risking and you will have value creation of the company, thus for investors. So this is also very important. So in a nutshell, this is what we are looking at.
Thank you. Okay, that makes it pretty clear. I think, Morten, do you have a differing opinion, or do you have a different approach, or is it very similar?
I think kind of similar, and I think for everyone interested in investment space, a lot of things that Christophe just touched on, I think also we'll see that at the Investor Day in Paris. We'll see a lot of these companies. They will be there. You will then be able to see from the audience that Christophe is right, that there's actually quite a few experienced oil and gas guys and girls in this industry. You can see it by the gray hair sometimes, but experience comes in different hair colors, of course. But I do agree. I think what's above ground is also really important, and I think the industry talks more and more about this. And by above ground, I mean market access. You got to be able to sell the hydrogen to someone, and that's just really important. And I think finally, for us as really early stage investors, it's really important that the companies work in an area where you can actually get a license.
Yeah.
And because this is such a new industry, that is not always the case. And I think finally, just as Christophe said, you got to lay out the milestones. You got to be realistic. What can you raise as a company, but also what can you, even if you are truly brilliant, what can this company do in this current industry? Because we know I'm pretty sure everyone listening know that there's a really big company in the US called Coloma, and they raised some impressive sums. But that sadly does not mean that you can go right out of the gates with an idea raising $100 million. Maybe you could do it in AI or cryptocurrency, but not this industry yet. Let's hope we'll be there at some point. But right now it has to be done step by step. And the companies presenting it at the investor day, if you look back at their history, you will see they've done exactly that. Step by step, milestone, racing again. I think this is the way it should be done.
Yes, and I think it's mostly because of what we're talking about when it comes to the industry as a resources industry, right? We can't sell them a prototype. We can't sell them, the idea that there's going to be this natural hydrogen coming out. Just give me 500 million and I'll pull it out. There has to be something of substance, right? So you mentioned just now Coloma, Morten, and I asked this question to both of you. When it comes to investment, how are publicly listed companies doing when it comes to public versus private? I know Coloma is the biggest one and it's private. But how are the public companies doing in your eyes?
Christophe, do you want to take this?
This is your expertise. Go ahead.
I think we crunched some numbers lately, and of course there's an industry with and one without Coloma, and Coloma has probably raised 2/3 of all the money in the industry still. So let's move that aside for a second, and it has been interesting to see lately that public traded companies, meaning the companies traded on stock exchanges that everyone can buy a share in, have now, it seems to raised just as much money as the private companies have. It's not to say for sure completely, because the private companies, maybe there's someone we can't see, maybe they don't disclose exactly, but the public companies are raising much more money now. And recently, as a really good validator of the whole industry, Gold Hydrogen in Australia raised from, I think, Toyota, Mitsubishi, and they raised at a 22% premium to their share price. And in public traded stocks, you're used to offering a discount when you're raising money. So that's quite impressive, and that's something I think the whole industry should take note of. And this is a good sign, definitely.
Yeah. I think we analyzed this a bit on the podcast. I'm not going to plug the podcast or do advertising here, don't worry. But we did talk a bit about this, and there is a lot going on in several countries, which is great to see, because I think there is a diversification of this funding. It's not only going to one company or two. It is being diversified, because we're talking about geology here. It could be anywhere on Earth. So it's good to see. Now, let's talk a bit about HNAT, who are sponsoring us today. I see Jacine in the audience. This will actually be my second HNAT and my third event in general. I know most people here are probably more veteran of these events than I am, but I know that HNAT is the biggest event in the world currently, and probably going to stay that way for a while, bringing together a lot of people. And it's actually where I met both of you in person. It was a great pleasure to meet both of you. So what does HNAT mean for you? And not as in, it's a great place to be, great place. But what does it mean for your businesses? How do you feel that HNAT can help you if you are a business person going to create more opportunities?
Well, basically, it's the best concentrate of what's going on in the natural hydrogen sector. So you have everything at the same place during 2 days. In Paris, by the way, which is great, as I'm based in France. It's the largest event dedicated to natural hydrogen, with almost all the pioneers in the world who are shaping this industry right now. So it's really impressive to see people coming from everywhere in the world, Australia, the US, and so on. So it's great. The success of HNAT is terrific. As far as I know, I think that the number of attendees has more than doubled, I think, since last year, and it had already doubled from the year before. So it's very, very impressive. I think that even if you are not a geologist or a tech guy, there is a lot, of course, about geology, geochemistry, but you can also get access to people involved in environment, politics, geopolitics, finance, of course, thanks to the Investor Day. So definitely, this is really, really the place to be. And again, I'm very happy that it takes place in France.
Yeah.
I think, just following much of that, definitely it is the biggest, and it just means that you will have most people collected from different sides of the industry. And you said earlier, Anthony, we should be careful not to anger the scientists and the geologists. They might throw rocks at you, but I do my best to understand the science behind natural hydrogen. I got great support from my technical team, and this year I brought the technical team so they can listen to the many good presentations, so that I can, just as I did last year, stay in the booth area, basically outside the conference room, because there's so many people that you want to have a chat with. There's so much coffee to be had. There's so many business cards to be exchanged. That works really, really well. And I think the other conferences are definitely good. But with HNAT, you can kind of probably draw a line of attendees, how that has grown, that would look like, fundraising in the industry and companies in the industry. A few weeks ago, there's a guy joking that the industry right now has more conferences. We've had more conferences than we had wells drilled. But I actually think this will change soon, because when we'll be in Paris, on stage, we'll have both Gold Hydrogen and Max Power, and they will be spotting wells in beginning of November. I don't know if they have anything to tell us from that, good or bad, or just that they did it. But it means things are, speeding up. And every time someone drills a well, there is the possibility, low or high, you can figure out yourself, that some interesting news will come out.
Yeah, I do remember that there was a very exciting moment when some of these companies, they stood up already in 2024, and they came with their announcements, and companies seem to be saving announcements now for HNAT, which says a lot about the event, right? It says a lot about how important it is to the space, that they wait for that precise moment to make it. And you mentioned not angering the guests in our audience. I do want to say, because I've seen more people have joined since the whole issue we had at the beginning. I already angered them, so I can't anger them anymore. But moving on from this, I wanted to ask about Investor Day. Investor Day, since we will be co-hosting it as NaturalHy Investing and NaturalHy, I wanted to ask you, who you too will be on the stage, you will be moderating some of these panels, you will be listening to the talks. What can we expect from this? Because I know that some people will only attend Investor Day. So it's important to know, what is this about? What is it Investor Day about?
Well, first of all, we decided to organize that Investor Day because last year we noticed that the financing investment was a bit overlooked. There was only one session, I think, about financing, and there were a lot of attendees wanted to know more about how to invest in that space. So that's the reason why we decided to create that Investor Day. It is very much inspired by what's happening, for example, in the mining sector, where you have a lot of junior exploration companies, and you have a lot of events dedicated to investment in the mining sector that combine one-on-one meetings, pitches, and also presentations on stage. So this is basically what we are doing this year with the Investor Day. So it's the first time we will do it, and I'm very pleased to see that we already have quite a lot of people who will attend, and I'm pretty sure that people who come for the whole HNAT will also attend the Investor Day. So it's great. The speakers and the program we have is really outstanding, with great speakers, people from Breakthrough Energy, McKinsey, who will make a presentation, Bloomberg also. So it's really high level, definitely. It will be great also to hear all the companies that will pitch on stage. So each junior exploration companies will have 10-minute session to pitch about the company, the activities, and so on. So this is great. And I think that what we have achieved is to have a program that is also very relevant for seasoned investors and for beginners. So this is really something we wanted to have. And what I can also tell you, without disclosing the names, is that we already have investors who will be at the investor day that are very, very great names in the space of hydrogen, natural hydrogen, and energy transition. Very, very interesting.
Perfect. Thank you, Christophe. And Morten, let's repeat the question if you need it. But to you, what
I think I can talk into.
You can follow up. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I think it's what's really interesting with the investor day is that, and I am probably biased being an investor here, but I think this is now the step that's really needed. We need more investment. There's been done a lot of good research and a lot of good science, and we always need more of this. But it costs money to get to the next level. So figuring out how to inspire investors, small and big, to set aside some of their money, using some of their exposure to this industry, that's really important. So any way possible we can tell the world about investing in natural hydrogen is welcomed, and it just fits very well at an event where we have all the industry gathered already.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I think Christophe mentioned something key, which is something I felt myself when we were at HNAT last year. It did need a bit more of investment. I think most natural hydrogen events in general, they need a bit more of that investment side, especially because it also allows a bit of networking. These companies that go there, young startups that want to meet somebody that helps them out, because where else, really? What other natural hydrogen communities are there? Well, this is not a very mature space yet. So how can these companies meet investors? Well, this new Investor Day opportunity gives them the chance to meet the people who might be in the future be funding them and supporting them. So yeah, it's key that this was created, and the people behind it, I think it was a very good idea, actually. HNAT and company. I wanted to mention we are about we're about halfway into the event, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat so we don't leave them for the end. Then we may not ask your question if it's not asked in time. Feel free to leave it in the chat. It will be responded in the Q&A section at the end of the event. So Christophe, now I'm going to ask one question to each of you. Christophe, staying in the subject of France specifically, how do you feel about natural hydrogen and how it's evolving in your country? Because I do feel that France is the bastion of natural hydrogen here in Europe. And does it seem like things are starting to pick up in France and become like the headquarters of natural hydrogen in Europe?
Well, I think we can definitely say that it has been also the bastion for natural hydrogen in the world, and I'm very humble by saying that. But it's a reality. People like Isabelle Moretti, that everybody knows, other academics like Alain Prinzhofer, those guys already worked on natural hydrogen a decade ago, and they pushed in France in order to have it in the mining code, which happened already 3 years ago in 2022 in France. So I think that in Europe, no, it's not. I think the France was the first country in Europe having natural hydrogen in the mining code. So we are definitely pioneers, but we are now at the point where science is not sufficient to stay and to remain a pioneer. Now we need money. All those junior exploration companies need to deliver, so they need money. And this is really something we are working at currently with Earth2 that I mentioned earlier, is trying to bring together investors, but also public funding, because in France, and this is sometimes very unusual for people in the US, for example. In France, the subsurface belongs to the state. So because natural hydrogen is also about energy sovereignty, we do believe that the government can do something for funding in France for natural hydrogen. So I used to say that we have been pioneers. We are still pioneers, but we would be more than happy to have other countries in the world that would maybe go faster than French people and drill and get results. I think that now we are at the point where we need one company somewhere in the world who can deliver and I would say make that proof of concept, make that it work, make it possible, show that it works, and that would of course benefit to everybody.
Yes, and it's great to see that all of this is happening in France. I'm actually a neighbor, so I'm in Spain. I remember actually, this is just a quick funny story. Somebody, when I told them, oh, I came over from Spain, it was just an hour of a flight, and they said, well, you're lucky, and I said, no, he's lucky, and I pointed to Christophe. He came from on a train, so he was very close by. So
maybe just Anthony, something I wanted to add, and sorry, Morten, about France. It's very, very interesting to see that natural hydrogen, there is somehow a consensus about natural hydrogen. And it's very important to mention it because in France, the subsurface has been almost left behind since decades with a social acceptance that is very low because as soon as you speak about subsurface, people think that it's oil and gas and it's polluting and so on. And now to see that natural hydrogen is gaining momentum in France is very, very interesting. And again, I think that we are helped by the context about energy transition, but also about energy sovereignty. And I think that we have to act as a French industry for natural hydrogen. We have to act very, very smartly in order to go through that and to prove that, number one, it works, and number two, we can probably make it in a very, very responsible way in order to enable social acceptance. And this is really something we are working at very, very carefully.
And hopefully France becomes, let's say, the European pioneer, because now we see that China, for example, is drilling their first well. It's a bit of news that we shared recently. And it would be nice to see if France's future discovery, let's assume it will happen 100%, will lead to Germany, Denmark, why not with Morten, and Spain and so on, joining in exploring, because we can't just watch the rest of the world do it and be observers. That's something I think. So
I
Morten,
think you're right. And it's okay if I can borrow the French flag a bit, and I'll wave it and saying that even if my best guess is that first well is probably being drilled commercial flow maybe in US, Australia for reasons that, ease of doing business. But France has already shown, I think, how it should be done in countries with, a strong public opinion. It was brilliant to change the mining laws instead of oil and gas. And the work that Earth 2 and others are already doing, the companies working in France, to let the public understand that this is not oil and gas. This hopefully will be the playbook, and other countries in Europe especially would look to France how to avoid it being like they will tell me in Denmark. Why should we disturb the subsurface? Why can't we just build windmills? No, because they don't think that we need stuff in the subsurface. That's, kudos France for doing this.
And this all comes to me of the UK, of the Industrial Revolution, right? It has to start somewhere. All of this has to start somewhere. The technological revolution in the US and so on. I think this could be similar. It could be France that creates the effects that reach everybody else. Hopefully, I'm just saying this is somebody who considers himself European, and I hope that's the case. Now, Morten, you get the spotlight moves now to Morten. Morten, I understand you are closely linked with Australian companies. So maybe we can talk about that, because I know there's going to be quite a few Australian companies at HNAT presenting and so on. Can we expect to see some of these leaders at HNAT and in the Australian leaders? Can we expect to see them at HNAT? And what do you think about this space in general? Because a lot is talked about. We've talked about Europe and we talk about the US, but what about Australia?
Well, I think I want to think of myself as someone who's connected, worldwide. But you're right. I just came home from an Australian conference, and one of the investments we made is in Australia, in Tasmania. But also the first two companies being publicly traded doing natural hydrogen were, of course, Australian. Gold Hydrogen doing exploration in South Australia, and Hytera being an Australian company but working in the US. And both Gold Hydrogen and Hytera, as well as a kind of recent newcomer, Thor Energy, will be in Paris, and will be doing these small pitch presentations so that everyone can understand better what these companies are doing. They are, of course, publicly traded, so what they will be telling will always be available somewhere. but I find it every time I listen to them speak, as I did with Avon from HNAT in Australia, that you understand better what they're actually doing. And I think especially HNAT and Gold, because they are a bit more advanced than Thor right now. They're planning their first wells still. I think Thor, the others are in the action. That's really exciting. There could be some interesting news, that we just haven't understood before, or maybe they can share something new.
I have to make a comment here about Australian companies. I do seem to see that they are more focused on natural hydrogen. To me, I'm not, maybe I'm a bit biased because I do a lot of reporting on the news come from Australia, but it does seem like they are very invested in natural hydrogen. They're not in natural hydrogen and other things, or natural hydrogen as a secondary business. It's like they are focused, and that to me is catches my eye. I think that makes them quite committed to what we're doing here. Is that the case?
I think agreed, but I think you're touching on the recent wave of public traded companies that some of them once were mining companies, and then switching to natural hydrogen, and some of the Australian ones do still have in their origin story some mining assets. Gold and HNAT hasn't, but again, the French companies, which are all private, are of course also pure hydrogen or pure hydrogen helium players.
Right.
But again, like France, South Australia did this early change of regulation, so you can actually get out doing it. And
that is a good point. Yeah.
Big disappointment from the industry side is that I guess at some point you can do exploration in all Australia, but Western Australia, we're actually still waiting for them to finish it. So even if all the good, ideas are there, they want to do it, it hasn't happened yet. Right. So that's again investing. As the whole industry, we must focus on the areas where you can actually go out and do it, because you never know how long you're gonna wait. It will help, like Christophe said, if someone proves commerciality, then I think regulators will be quick around the world. But until then, have to wait a bit.
Okay, I've still not seen any messages in the chat. We are approaching the questions and answers section. Sorry. I wanted to ask, let's call them quick fire questions. So this is going to be a question in which I want both of you to be relatively quick, so we can get to the point as fast as possible and as concisely as possible. Morten and Christophe, or Christophe and Morten, in this order. What area of natural hydrogen needs the most investment and support moving forward, and why?
To remain very short, I would say the needs are on the drilling operations, because it's very capex intensive, and this is the moment where we are right now for a few companies, and so the needs are there, according to me.
Okay.
Agree, totally. Wells drilled, and we will welcome, like the mining industry have had sometimes, some support for drilling new wells.
Right. Perfect. Okay, that's a good answer for both of you. There is another quite an interesting question following, so that's why I wanted to get that one asked. We know now that it's the drilling. It would be nice to actually take a clip out of this video, editing maybe, and it is quite interesting to know it's the drilling and not anything else. No longer the science. Maybe the science has been developed, and the offtake is still far away, I would say. Would you agree that the offtake, transporting it or the piping and so on, is not an issue right now, is it?
As we have some time, I just want to add something to my previous answer.
Please.
The reason why drilling is so important is that in all the subsurface industry, you cannot be sure about anything as long as you have not drilled a well. And I would just want to make that very clear, because there is a hype about natural hydrogen and AI and so on. So just to put the church again in the middle of the city, this is a French saying. You really have to drill, and so it's very important regarding the needs in fundraising for all those companies, but also to prove that it works. You need to drill when you go to in the subsurface. And that made me forget your question. I'm sorry for that.
But before Anthony answers, let me follow up on that, Christophe, because I agree. You know, we need drilling because it's a feedback loop back to research and building your models. You know, so that we can get more clever. And I accidentally said on stage a few weeks ago, someone asked me, "What about AI? You know, could AI help us?" And I said, and it's almost right. You know, if I see a presentation, if there's a company that comes to me, we want to do natural hydrogen with a lot of AI, I tend just to throw it out because I think it's overhyped. AI has so many good use cases, but you got to have real data to test your models. So you can AI all you want, but you know we want to make sure what we're actually looking for.
Yeah.
So that's why drilling to feed that information feedback loop would just be really important.
Right. Yeah, and the question, Christophe, was everything that comes after extraction, which is the storage, for example, the transport. It's good to know that this is not right now the priority. We have to find it. We have to drill first, as you say, and we have to find it and extract it. Otherwise, I mean, we're not doing anything by preparing for something comes after if we don't have the after. I understand very well what you mean here. This should be the final question, actually, because I don't see any new questions in the chat. Before we go, I want to get a future outlook for myself and for all of our listeners and for the people who will watch this once the recording is up. After a positive 2025 where investment grew, this cannot be denied. It was a big growth in investment. And we're seeing more diversification than ever. What do you think 2026 will bring? Because now we have the announcements, okay, we will be drilling. We have, let's mention some companies. We have Gold Hydrogen, we have Max Power, we have Hytera who are already drilling. With this drilling done and the results coming in, what will 2026 bring? And will there be more pressure now from people like you as investors to get results? Or will we be more cautious? Will we be able to make more mistakes and say, hey, we still need to drill 10 more wells? Christophe, first.
I think that things will really speed up, ramp up in 2026, thanks to again successful drilling operation. And when I say that things will ramp up, I come again on your question about offtake. Once it is proven that it works, number one, you have no problem with offtakes, and number two, I think that very, very quickly you can also solve the issue about infrastructure. You know that a lot of people are asking questions about once you have the natural hydrogen, how do you transport it, how do you transform it, and so on. And 10 years ago, I spent a lot of time in the US. I studied the shale oil and the shale gas phenomenon in the US, and I spent a lot of time in North Dakota, where there was almost no longer oil production, and when those guys started to extract shale oil, they first transported it by train and so on. And then when I came back, each 6 weeks, I came to North Dakota and I saw all the pipelines that were constructed, built just next to the road. So I think that 2026 could also show us how quick it's of course it always takes time, but how quick infrastructure can be put in place in order to transport again and transform that natural hydrogen, because the issue is so important regarding the energy transition that I think that there will be a huge political and also financial support for all that
Right.
all those needs.
So basically, before Morten starts responding, what this means is we are just waiting for day one of natural hydrogen as a reality, and then everything will come after pretty much on its own, right? That's what you're saying, Christophe?
Absolutely. Again, everybody is waiting for that molecule, for the cheapest molecule we can get, and this is natural hydrogen. Once we have the cheap molecule, you will unlock a lot of things.
Okay, fingers crossed.
Of course.
I think regarding offtake, while I am extremely bullish on natural hydrogen, I do think this has one of the greatest potentials for new energy types ever. Offtake is more problematic than one might think. I think there's if we have all the time in the world, eventually we'll just build pipelines. We'll fix it. But as an impatient investor, as an impatient guy who wants clean energy, companies who want cash flow, I think it has to be considered what happens if we only find small amounts. What if the wells doesn't produce very much?
Yeah.
And also, when are we confident that it will continue to flow? So it doesn't mean that it's not doable, like Christophe just said. It needs to be the right places, the right circumstances have to be lined up. Also, what happens if you find a lot of it? Will there actually be off-takers ready? You could easily be drowning the local market for hydrogen. And since no one has bought the hydrogen trucks yet, then you're quickly, filling the demand bucket for hydrogen. So I think that's important, and that is, of course, something we pay a lot of attention to, both when investing in exploration companies. How do we imagine the market might be? Yeah. So just want to add that, but again, into 2026, what's going to happen? I think hopefully we'll continue to be realistic, showing the hope for what natural hydrogen could do, but preparing every investor that this will not be plain sailing. Looking at our index, we'll probably see going like this as it develops, hopefully in the right direction. But there will be wells that turn out to be just a waste of money. Or I would actually say maybe not. You'll get a lot of data, but you will not be producing, as in any other exploration industry. And I think that's just important that we prepare our minds for that. And I do think that resource investors are actually prepared for this.
Yes. Yeah, good. Actually, I think this is a good outlook because it's not a heavily biased, heavily positive and optimistic outlook that you'd expect to see from many people who are inside an industry. I think both of you have been very realistic and been very balanced when it comes to saying how things will be or may be. So it's good. And actually, we have received 2 last-minute questions and 1 comment. So the comment I recommend both of you to read, it's from Mohammed Afsal in the chat. Please read it when you can. And the question itself, T. John asks, he hasn't seen the whole event. He has to step out a couple of times. Has there been any discussion of stimulated versus accumulation? There's not been this discussion, T. John, but if any of you wants to respond, stimulated versus accumulation, maybe a quick response would be perfect.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find the question.
While you find it, I'll just say,
go ahead.
We haven't touched on stimulated hydrogen for new listeners. The type of hydrogen where you don't just drill down and extract, but where you need to maybe inject water or heat, something else to make the reaction happen. Which we could have. It's not, as I remember, on the program for the Investor Day, but there are a company like French company Vima, H2 doing something like this. Others are looking into it. There's some interesting tests going on in Oman. I think we just released, Anthony, the podcast with Alex Templeton.
Yeah, I was about to mention.
Definitely. Sorry, interesting subject. Yeah. I don't know if there'll be something on stage on the normal HNAT event. I think Alex Templeton might be doing a presentation, which will be interesting. Definitely.
Yeah, John, if you want, today we just released on our YouTube, sorry to plug this, but it's helping somebody. We just released on our YouTube the stimulated hydrogen interview with Alexis Templeton. So please go to our YouTube and check it out. 58 minutes of value. I think you're going to find a lot of information, stimulated versus accumulation. There's not that much about investment there, but you'll see the science and the how it functions. And finally, we have a question from AXJ. And quite a few numbers. Sorry, I have a bit of a sore throat. Do you think European companies in the main will stay private? I would like to ask this to Christophe.
I have no crystal ball, so I cannot answer. But what is for sure is that it's not usual for French European companies so early to get listed. What HNAT has done, what Gold Hydrogen has done, this is very specific to Australia, with a market dedicated to such junior companies. Again, it's very usual also in the mining sector. So I cannot say that European companies will stay private. It would make sense once they are more mature to be public. But so far it's not the case.
Okay, well, I've just got a little piece of information from Yassine, one of the organizers of HNAT. Alexis Temperton will be on stage during HNAT Summit November 14. So this will be the Investor Day. So please, if you are not attending, make sure to attend on Investor Day online if you wish. It does seem there are more questions coming in. No. Yeah, AXJ follows up on his question about the private, if they will be stay private. Will Europe fall behind in raising funds? Christophe, if you want to answer that quickly.
It's a very good question. I hope not. I'm just thinking about one very successful company in France in the geothermal sector. The name is Arverne, and that company is now is listed, and it's very successful. But again, it has come to the market much more later than the junior companies in Australia. So to answer in a nutshell, I think that if the founders of those European companies think that there is a risk of lacking money because they are not listed, I guess that they will definitely think about being listed, and it would make sense again. But once they are more mature.
Right.
A quick comment. Just, I think I totally agree with you, Christophe. Europe doesn't have the market for it. But on the other side, you will probably won't see anything like what happened to Coloma. That early stage risk money will go so much all in. So something in between. I do think both private and public money is available in Europe, but they need a bit more proof. So let's imagine someone flows something interesting in US, that will very likely unlock a lot of money, maybe even more in Europe than somewhere else, because there is a lot of clean energy money ready to do it when it's a bit less risky. Could be, trying to pretend I have a crystal ball. That would be my best guess.
Hopefully also in Spain, again, I must mention Spain, because they're treating natural hydrogen as oil and gas, as an equivalent to oil and gas, which is just wrong, sadly. But actually, thank you both for your responses. I really want to thank everybody who was here, who was bearing with us with the passcode incident, the passcode problem. It will not happen next time. There will be a next event. We will announce it soon. And again, Christophe Hecker from NaturalHy, Morten Stahl from Natural Hydrogen Ventures. Want to give you a thank you for being here. HNAT for sponsoring us, for allowing us to co-host the Investor Day 2025 this November 14, and HNAT in general, which is 13 and 14 of November. And this was Anthony Muhye from NatH2 Investing. I work also with Morten on NatH2 Investing. Check out our podcast and all of the rest. Hopefully we'll see you all in Paris. If you're not ready to go, let us know. We can get you a discount for the online version of the event. And that's it. Hopefully, just one last, thank you for the passcode. About the passcode, if you weren't able to see all of the event, it will be live on our YouTube, and I will be sharing some videos with Christophe, so he's also going to post some stuff. Follow him, follow us as well, and it will be on our YouTube. So don't worry if you missed any of it. Okay, Rusty, please reach out to us, Rusty Gilbert or Gilbert. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.